Welcome to another sermon from the Lewes Church of Christ. And now, here's Mark.
Our text today that we want to look at begins like this. Now, for those of you who are younger, we've been in this series, Men, right? We've been in this series, Men, and today we're going to wrap up this series. Now, last month, May, we were focused on women. This month, June, we're focused on men. Next month is July, and Adam is going to lead away in a series that focuses on family. And he's already shared some of the main ideas and kind of the map that he's taken for the whole series. And I can tell you right now, you are going to be so blessed because of what he's going to do in July. It's going to be incredible. So July is just going to be a fantastic month. But today we conclude our series, Men. Now, Merle Ann of our church and Marion Harrison, if you know them, of our church, kind of a couple older ladies of our congregation, said, Mark, wouldn't it be so cool if we concluded the series by her and I jumping on the Harley and riding it out of here to conclude your sermon? That's awesome. That would be so awesome. If they did that, I don't think we would ever see them again, but that would be so awesome. Well, not that part, but you know, you've heard of Thelma and Louise? That would be so way worse than that. But anyway, no, we're not going to do that. But today we conclude the series, and our text begins, you who are younger. Go back one screen. Sorry to mess you up. You who are younger. Now, who is that referring to? You who are younger. Now, I want to give you a heads up that this message really is for everyone in the audience today. It really is. But it is especially earmarked for those of you in the audience who consider yourself to be a young buck at the crossing. Do we have any young bucks at the crossing? All right. You know, I'll be honest with you. I consider myself a young buck at the crossing. I know some of you are thinking, yeah, denial, but really, the message is going to be for every one of you, but it is especially focused for the young men. If you consider yourself a young man in this church, this sermon is for you. Look at the whole text. Look how it starts. In the same way, well, you got to go back up to realize he was just talking, he had a special message for the older men. Here's a message for the older men. Now, in the same way, you who are younger, and so he's specifically talking to the younger men. I'm just making sure you're looking at me. Yes. The younger men. You who are younger, now listen, submit yourselves to your elders. Now, I know you love that, don't you guys? That's the message of the Lord for you. Submit yourselves to your elders, those who are older than you. All of you, clothe yourself with humility toward one another, because God opposes the proud, but shows favor to the humble. Humble yourselves, therefore, under God's mighty hand, that he may lift you up in due time. Cast all of your anxiety on him, because he cares for you. Now, guys, I want to keep this simple today for us. And the map of the sermon is simply this. I want us to talk about the what, the why, and the how. I think that sets us up for a good message today from the Lord. The what, the why, and the how. Let's start with the what. The what. The what of this passage is going to come by way of an expectation. And the expectation, really there's one expectation kind of presented in two different ways. One expectation, two different ways. Look at verse 5 and 6 again. In the same way, you who are younger, you young bucks at the crossing, submit yourselves to your elders. All of you clothe yourselves with humility toward one another. Humble yourself. Two expectations or one expectation in two ways. Submit yourself. Humble yourself. Submit yourself, humble yourself. I like to translate it like this. Be totally respectful and completely humble. That's what it says, right? Totally respectful, completely humble. Probably the hardest thing you will ever be expected to do. But that's the expectation. That's the what. Submit yourselves to your elders. The word submit is a military word that means to acknowledge the proper rank. If you're in the military, you understand the proper rank, right? Acknowledge the proper rank. And in this context, it's telling the young bucks, the younger guys, hey, I want you to place yourself lower than those who are older. On purpose, place yourself underneath their wisdom. On purpose, place yourself underneath their position, their maturity, their experience. You young bucks, submit yourselves to those who are older. And then the text says, clothe yourselves with humility. Guys, I want you to know that humility is one of those, it's a word of attitude. It's an attitude of modesty that personally chooses the lower place. Guys, clothe yourself with that. You personally decide, you know what, I'm going to choose the lower place every time. And then the text just simply says, humble yourself. That's the message the Lord wants every young buck hearing today. The expectation. That's the what. Okay, what about the why? Why would anybody do that? Why would anybody humble ourselves? Let's talk about the why. The why is going to come through some pretty cool motivation, if you ask me. I mean, maybe top-notch motivation. Did you see the motivation? Look at what the motivation is. Because God opposes the proud. That's pretty good motivation, eh? God opposes the proud, but shows favor to the humble. So therefore, humble yourselves, therefore, under God's mighty hand, that He may lift you up in due time. Hey, two motivational factors, if you ask me. The first one is, why humble yourself? Well, because God opposes the proud. If you allow yourself to be so full of pride, I want you to know that you're placing yourself in opposition to God. If you allow yourself to be so full of pride, I want you to know that you're placing yourself in a position where God is going to start strategizing against you. A little FYI, that is a battle you cannot win. Do you smell what I'm cooking? It is a battle you cannot win. To be opposed to God? Come on. It's a battle you cannot win. And the second motivation is, but God shows favor to the humble. God shows favor. God shows grace to the humble. In due time, He's going to lift you who are humble up. With that promise, you cannot lose. Men, guys, you young bucks at the crossing, hey, choose this. You cannot lose. Ignore this. You cannot win. You hear that loud and clear, right? That's the why. Pretty good motivation if you ask me. Well, we know the what. We understand the why. Now how? Isn't that always the hard part? How? How do you humble yourself? Kind of sounds like it hurts. How do you do that? How do you humble yourself? Well, our text gives us a pretty good start. Look at verse 7. Did you see verse 7? It starts this way. Cast all your anxiety on Him because He cares for you. That's pretty cool. Here's how the apostle wants us to start. Acknowledge your anxiety. Guys, especially you teenagers, you need to spend some time considering and confessing your anxieties. I don't got anxieties. You need to spend some time thinking about what they really are. So what are your anxieties? What are you afraid of? What fear do you have? What are you worried about? What are you tempted with? What are your trials? What are you stressed up about? What's got you all worked up? What are you worried about? Confess your anxiety. Guys, if you get to the place you start feeling like and you start thinking like and you kind of start saying, I'm not afraid of anything. You are so full of it. Pride, that is. You are so full of pride. If you are thinking like that, if those words come out of your mouth, you are so full of it. Confess your anxiety. And then cast it to the Lord. Did you see the text? Cast it to the Lord. I love the word cast here. It's a fisherman term, right? Have you ever fished with a cast net? This is what it's saying. Throw it as far away from you as you can. Throw it out there. Cast it out there. But it's saying, cast it to the Lord. That's how you humble yourself. When you casting, it's a fisherman term. This one night this evening, or this week, me and my boys and Angel went fishing for a little bit, just for fun, just a few minutes. We just cast down a little pond, and man, I caught a whopper. And Angel caught a little bit bigger of a whopper. I forget where it was. Anyway, it's casting out there. It's getting the bobber as far away from you can, right? It's getting the net out there, but you're casting it to Him. Why? He cares about you. He really cares for you. I read a really cool story this week of Nick Wendella. Nick Walenda. Nick is the guy, he's the tightrope walker, right? In 2012, he walked a tightrope over Niagara Falls. In 2013, he became the first guy to walk the high wire walk the Grand Canyon. Whew. Nick is a devoted follower of Jesus. And Nick, it's just interesting, after every event where thousands of people show up, Nick does something really interesting. And, after everybody's there watching him in the spotlight, and the spotlight causes pride. After every event where thousands of people are there, he spends time, 3 hours, picking up the trash from the crowd when they leave. I want you to listen to his explanation. 3 hours after cleaning up debris after each event is good for my soul. Humility doesn't come naturally for me. So if I have to force myself into situations that are humbling, so be it. I do it because it's a way to keep me from tripping. As a follower of Jesus, I see Him washing the feet of others. I do it because if I don't intentionally serve others, I will serve nothing but my own ego. Wow. He says that humility doesn't come natural for him. No, it doesn't, does it? And he says that if I don't intentionally serve others, I will serve nothing but my own ego. He's right, isn't he? Pretty cool story. I find it interesting that the Bible uses the same metaphor as a tightrope walker. I think you actually know this. Pride comes before the fall. Pretty cool story. But I got a better one for you. When it comes to humbling yourself, there's no better than Jesus. Can I remind you of Philippians chapter 2? Look at this. This is one of my favorites. In your relationships with one another, have the same mindset of Christ Jesus, who, being in very nature God, did not consider equality with God something to be used for his own advantage. Rather, he made himself nothing by taking the very nature of a servant, being made in human likeness. And being found in appearance as a man, he humbled himself. He humbled himself by becoming obedient to death, even death on a cross. Therefore, God exalted him to the highest place and gave him the name that is above every name. Now that's a story. Wow. It says he made himself nothing. It says he humbled himself. It says that he refused to ever whip out his God card. Wow. He had a throne, yet chose a cross. He was the King of Kings and chose to be a servant. Wow. That's a pretty cool story. And he did it for us. I want to close today by giving you my list. I spent a lot of time this week kind of keeping a running list for myself. And what I want to do, kind of in closing, I want to share with you what I intend to do in the coming month to humble myself. Just a running list. Now, if you want to steal some of these, you go right ahead. If you want to make your own list, you go right ahead. But please do something to leave here today and go humble yourself. Here's my list. Number one, it's going to start with confess voluntarily. Now, if I get caught in sin, I'm humbled. But I didn't humble myself, right? In fact, can I remind you that God's goal is not that you be humbled. He wants you humbling yourself. God doesn't want any of us humbled. He wants us humbling ourselves. Big difference, isn't there? Big difference. But voluntary confession. If I am confronted and confess, it's humbling, but I didn't humble myself. Voluntary confession is how you humble yourself. We just need to do that. Just voluntary. And Peter tells us that the way you start the process is to pray. If you're casting your anxieties on him, what are you doing? Well, you're praying. You're praying. You're giving it to him. Prayer is when you can cast. You're allowed to cast it to him. He'll take it. He'll deal with it. Cast it to him. You see, prayer is an action of dependence and humility. And can I remind you this week that as you bow before the Lord in prayer, can I encourage you to fill it with a lot of personal confession? That's how you humble yourself. Look at number 2. I want to suggest number 2 is you ask for help. Ask for help. That's a way to humble yourself. Ask for help. Do you know how humbling it is for a man to ask for help? Have you ever known a man to stop and ask for directions? Seriously? I got Alice in my car to direct me with GPS. But no, seriously, do you know how humbling it is for a man to ask for help? Ask for help. Do you know how humbling it is for a preacher to ask for help? I think I made a mess of this. I need help. To be honest, I'm way in over my head. I need help. I have no idea what to do next. I need help. Humility always asks for help. Ask for help. And the truth is, you know what? We have blind spots in our lives. When pride enters in, when pride rears its head, we rarely ever see it in the mirror. You can rarely see pride in yourself, but others can. And so therefore, I want to suggest that we need to ask for help. In fact, I would encourage you often to ask someone who knows you, someone who that you know loves you, and just ask them, hey, when am I most prone to pride? When do you see arrogance appearing in my life? Oh, they'll help you. Ask for help. Look at number 3. On my list, I just put, I need to consider everyone more important than me. Now that comes from Philippians chapter 2. Remember the text we read about Jesus? That was so awesome. It sets it up with this. Do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit, but in humility, value others above yourself. Humbling yourself. Look at number 4. I like this one, but I don't really like this one. Realize you are dispensable. It's a humbling thing to think about this. Do you realize that if you were to die today, the world will keep going? Yep. If you go on sabbatical on Tuesday, church will still be happening. You're dispensable. Look at number 5. Do something to serve others. Yeah. Do something to serve other people. Do something to give of yourself to go serve somebody else. And go serve somebody who you know cannot repay you. That's the key. Do something to serve somebody. Even if it is as simple as letting them go first. At a restaurant, at a family dinner, in line at Walmart, let someone else go first. It will do you good. Serve somebody else. Look at number 6. Avoid taking the credit. I. Just zip it. Avoid taking the credit. Look at this next one, 7. Praise others. Nothing will diminish pride like the just sincere praise of other people. Just praise other people. Just praise them like crazy. Humbling yourself. Look at this next one, number 8. Help others succeed. Help others succeed. Now, pride hoards knowledge, and pride hoards resources, but humility shares it. Because you want them to succeed. You want them to do well. You want them to do the best they can be. Humble yourself. Number 9, major in thanksgiving. Guys, can I encourage you today to make it your goal that you're going to major in thanksgiving? You're just going to be a Thanksgiving major in this life. A thankful life is the key to a fulfilled life. Major in thanksgiving. And one more, and I would say probably the most important. Would you regularly contemplate the cross? You know how humbling it is? Stop what you're doing and just acknowledge the fact that Jesus, the perfect, sinless Son of God, came off of a throne and went to a cross for your mess. He was killed on a cross to die, to cover the sin of people who would hate him. To cover the sin of people who would reject him. To die and cover and to forgive the people who would sin against him. To cover yourself. And maybe we ought to spend more time contemplating the exceeding greatness of his mercy and grace. and the fact he went to a cross to take care of your mess. Thank you. In fact, in a few minutes, we're going to partake in the Lord's Supper. You know what the Lord's Supper is all about, really? Humbling yourself before the cross. Guys, men of LCC, young bucks at the crossing, do something this week to go humble yourself. You know what I'm saying? Do something. One more time, look at our text. All of you, clothe yourself with humility toward one another, because God opposes the proud but shows favor to the humble. Humble yourselves, therefore, under God's mighty hand, that he may lift you up in due time.
This has been a presentation of the Lewes Church of Christ. We are located at 15183 Coastal Highway, Milton, Delaware, 3 miles north of Lewes on Highway 1. Our service times are 9 a.m. and 11 a.m. every Sunday morning.